Hello, all. My name's Michael Folk. I have a website I made um, that I wanted to share with you all. It has some ideas in it. I think that would be pretty awesome if they came. This is the most important um, page on my site, most significant, especially with the all the recent scientific news of the world relating to our climate and environment here on Earth, obviously. So this is my site um, and the page I was talking about, and this is my proposal to the world. To the world. Sorry, I have a speech impediment. This calls for a new world democratic government, possibly system or climate agreement slash pact, and an updated capitalist system and model. So I'll just read it off. The economy of today, with capitalism as the dominant economic paradigm, is interconnected across the world. Capitalism and fossil fuels have resulted in vast advancements for humanity over the last 100 years, but the planet has limits. Everything takes energy, as we know from physics. Money equals power, and money in a capitalist system tends to funnel towards the top without sane restrictions and laws. It also tends to always produce a single track mind towards competition and profits over everything, while neglecting many other aspects that support life itself. I believe it's time we humans develop and implement some sane ground rules that apply to all countries and people to more sustainably live life on our planet and build a better future. That could be amazing and great for everyone. I'm not sure if my proposals are the very best, the most fair, just, least oppressing, etc., and realize and know they need to be fleshed out more. It is only my take at this time in setting initial broad proposals. Something I would do if I was the most powerful person in the world, the President of the United States, which my site is based on, as is politically based, and I feel if one is to be a public servant, a public elected official, such as in the Senate of the United States or the House of the United States of America, one should have a fleshed out view that pretty much, which is comparable to being a president and building up your own ideas and ideals if one had the presidential powers. There's a quote I like: situated, situated knowledge taken into it in a stream. Some forms of situated knowledge, those grounded in biophysical reality, may prove to be acceptable if not wholly desirable. Allows people to embrace a myriad of virtual realities, while nature and humanity, primarily along lines of race, class, and gender, continue to be exploited for socio-economic and political profit. By emphasizing the relativity of all beliefs, validity of socially constructing sustainably postmodern cultural relativism helps empower modernist actors, institutions, and processes to continue with business as usual. For it is difficult to establish which social construction leads to sustainability. As Alan Drinson argues, there is no single natural reality which has integrity and evolutionary direction, and world or nature is just a social construction, then there is no moral reason we should not redesign it however we please. In New Age thought, the many realities language can become a way of avoiding responsibility for the present state of affairs. The massive species distinctions, by living in a different reality or by believing that we can change the world just by thinking in a certain way for shifting consciousness as we desire. While sustainability is not a purely homogeneous concept which can be defined in a resolute, deterministic, and narrow manner, it nevertheless is bounded by one not a complex and multifold reality. There are certainly varying ways of organizing this reality and of achieving sustainability. We can create our own varying ways of organizing this reality and of achieving sustainability. We can create our own surreality or experience reality if we subjectively inhabit the world, but survival requires that we live sustainably. In effect, reality is like a giant crystal which shifts and changes as it turns, but nevertheless is always one crystal. Ultimately, even though there can be different interpretations of sustainability, in order for these visions to be viable, they must be grounded within multidimensional reality. And it is with an understanding of this reality that sustainability does not become a desirous everything for everyone, but a concrete concept that recognizes the real need for environmental responsibility. So why can't we make the world as we want it to be, or it can envision it to be? So then I go towards my proposals. On make things simple within this, the rules of this new Paris Climate Agreement and new democratic world government, or you know, basically rules that all nations of the world can agree to and all people. Let's start with proposing to the world leaders a global carbon tax and a binding new climate agreement. It should be binding to all countries, or else they would face economic repercussions within the world's trade markets. More on that later down below. Let's start the transition towards a circular economy in the United States. It's already happening in the EU. The US needs a plan. The US, we don't need to just rely on the federal government, I believe, to be spending tax money to fix problems. We need to direct, as the founding fathers said, direct with a gentle hand the economy towards, you know, what is good. And if we have a more better democracy, I believe that works for more, gives more power to local communities, um, and cities, and also, you know, number three, propose a new economic model based on humanity's unlimited ability to create through the human mind, but living on and within a finite planet with finite resources. Key words are humanity has unlimited ability to create, yes, and we advance, but it's not tied to anything. Our world's economic systems, or as is based a lot upon exploitation, either of people or the planet, and that's how a lot of, obviously billionaires can come to be. Not saying that also that capitalism itself doesn't have a lot of good things within it, and a lot of good, principles, and should be just done away with. But there should be more real. There is no environmental, you know, negative externalities uncounted. It's not counted if one pollutes in financial systems of capitalism today. So this could be doing away with the Federal Reserve as we know it and instituting a new Federal Reserve within the United States, all set, all making a new global reserve currency by that new democratic world governmental body, which acts with extreme transparency and is held liable by all countries and people of the earth, that sets these a few simple ground rules. And it could also act as an arbitrator for countries between multinational states or between countries who have differences, might be going to possible war. So back to the first number one, expanding upon that idea of a new world Paris climate agreement that would actually be binding instead of non-binding. This would take the implementation of a global carbon tax. My idea would be to put taxes on the buyer, the initial buyer of the fossil fuels. That would be taxed. Be simple tax, you know, worldwide, agreed upon, and would probably be progressively higher each year. It would require the profits on these taxes to be spent towards a transition, towards a zero and eventually negative carbon economy, doing it in the most efficient way possible, which is, spending first on first world countries to lower our emissions, and afterwards spending on lesser developed countries, as the lesser developed countries, especially in Northern Africa, will be having the most population growth. If you look at simple population pyramid charts and how population growth works, the uh, the less the more youthful populations are the more faster growing ones, and also that comes with the growth of economy from third world to first world economies. Population growth slows, and then you know eventually actually goes negative, more negative. I'd like to also transition towards protecting water resource rights, and we need a transition towards sustainable permaculture like agricultural practices, which focuses on putting carbon back in the ground. Pretty much need to implement everything to combat climate change. I believe need to increase the albedo of the earth, put white surfaces on roofs, parking lots, etc. As the Arctic ice lessens in ascent, the Earth is losing albedo that redirects high energy UV radiation directly back out of the atmosphere. The circular economy creates a truly healthy economy with much sharing, new job opportunities, works within capitalist systems very well, especially if capitalist systems, um, if the environmental, if the environment of the earth itself were to be integrated within the system, it'd work much better, and the circular economy would be the way forward. Pretty much, the circular economy is taken like from permacultural type principles, which is working with nature, learning from nature. It's more design intensive, but less. Once everything and set up and work is done, it's a lot more sustainable. citizens' climate lobby has proposed a nice carbon tax system. Um, I believe the President of the United States should propose these ideas to the United Nations and all nations of the world. The United States is in decline, needs to change course. Once you reach a certain point towards lessening carbon emissions, I would say, however much that happens to peak at, your energy return on investment for an individual country, and if they're still buying fossil fuels and actually having money go towards helping other countries could be a good system. Creating rules and regulations on the suppliers so they can't tamper with supplies. Also, to manipulate prices on fossil fuels should be in place. It'd be pretty easy, I think. But it seems like we don't ever want to tax, you know. But it seems like the capitalist system as of now is kind of very it's very idealistic and doesn't take the real world into account. It's very selfish acting. Um, Even though I don't believe that people themselves are selfish acting and bad or have a bad nature. I believe we have a very forgiving nature, and that's why it continues to be this way. Some of the other proposals and rules that this I think we could all agree to is a de-escalation or disarmament of the nuclear weapons, and also any banning any mass and large-scale weapons in their development, including biological, synthetic, large-scale weapons of mass destruction, um, providing protections to whistleblowers of such technology, and harsh military and economic actions against countries who break the rules. A no eye for offensive weapons pact. I believe the potential lethality of smart weapon systems combined with, advanced technology and weapon systems themselves, robotics, downright scary. Um, could be very lethal, very, very lethal, I imagine and believe. Um, I believe we should ban this technology from being coming into the world, um, and possibly having defensive or AI smart technology should be permissible, and it actually could help within that. We could develop, AI that could actually, you know, alert us to the development of offensive AI and super efficient mass killing weapons of mass destruction or otherwise. The last thing is I propose is a biological integrity pact, limits any playing and using and concerning the use of genetically modified organisms into the wild. Um, we already have a lot of agricultural GMOs without a lot of long-term scientific research on their effects, but it seems like you could look at the rates of autism in the world and the use of GMOs and synthetic also provide financial rewards to countries who preserve ecological hotspots for the world, not just making it into eco-tourism. But that's mostly all. Thanks for listening.